I think people go to Amazon or Walmart generally for like commodity products. If you're going to the Fascination, you're coming to discover brands you've never heard of before. You're looking for a curated selection that is presented to you by people like you, and it's a very small subset of what you would get at like a Walmart or Amazon. And so, like I said, I think, we sort of see ourselves as like the new antithesis to Amazon. It's not everything for everybody. It's not prime next day shipping for everything, but if there's a place to go to shop 100% of brands that you know you'll love, like go to the Fascination.
Hello and welcome to the D2C podcast. I'm Eric Dick, and today we are extremely lucky to be having a great conversation with Matt Hayes, the co-founder and head of growth for the Fascination. So the Fascination is a curated marketplace for D2C products that includes things like founder stories as well as reviews. It's sort of like a one-stop shop for high quality D2C products, and Matt has built this out with his co-founder after having seen a lot of success in the D2C space a couple years ago with his mattress brand Lisa. So he took everything he knew about D2C marketing and D2C product building and has built it into the Fascination, this unique take on the marketplace concept that we explore with him today. Hope you enjoy. Too often, marketers struggle to turn customer data into actions in a timely manner. Simon Data's customer data platform gives you the ability to drive faster marketing results from a centralized platform. Visit simondata.com/DTC to see how Simon can help you accelerate time to value, boost revenue, and improve your marketing team efficiency. Unlock the power of your customer data today by visiting simondata.com/DTC. Welcome to the DTC podcast, Matt. I always like to start with the why when I went on these podcasts. So can you tell me the why for the Fascination?
Yeah, I mean, it goes way back. The history is complicated and storied in many, but I think the gist of it really is like, if you look at the market today, if you look at the consumer ecosystem, from when I launched Lisa, or when we launched Lisa back in 2014 to today, there's been an absolutely explosion of direct consumer brands. And as a consumer, you're like completely overwhelmed with choice, like, who do I trust? Are these any good? Et cetera, et cetera. And so, as a consumer and as a brand looking from the other side, we saw this mass fragmentation happening in the space. And wearing my brand hat and seeing what's happened since, the halcyon days of $50 CPAs in the mattress space to where it is today, it's like...
Where is it today, by the way? Where are we at for CPAs in the mattress space? Do you estimate?
I estimate depending on the AOV, probably between $300 and $700.
Wow.
So the bounties are good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we saw a lot of that. I mean, we saw kind of the dark side of the review ecosystem and sort of what can go wrong. And we saw like the wire cutters of the world doing it really above reproach. And we saw this mass fragmentation happening simultaneously. And for brands, for small brands especially, you see really the need to diversify away from a pure paid search, paid social playbook. I think that's pretty clear now. Like CACs are rising precipitously. They're 5x probably what they were when we started spending. And so brands need new acquisition channels that are cost effective. They need new ways to find customers and brand partners, and they want really tight reins around their brand story and the way they're presented on site. And so I think we talk about like Walmart or Amazon, like a lot of our brands don't even go on Walmart or Amazon. So we saw this sort of white space where all of these brands are popping up and consumers have like browser tab overload, essentially. Like they are having a real time trying to figure out who's the best skincare when there's 50 skincare brands that have launched in the last 6 months. And so we provide that curation lens through product reviews and shopping guides that we do real life testing with. We put our brands through a bit of a curation process where we evaluate what we call the science and the soul of the brand. And then we merchandise brands on our platform, either as sort of premium affiliates or we're moving more towards a pure dropship e-commerce marketplace. And so, really when you have that level of understanding of a brand story, that sort of network connection, you're able to do a lot of stuff together. And like that's something that like Walmart and Amazon aren't doing. And so I think that's what young founders crave and that's what consumers crave. And so we're wrapping it up in a nice package called the Fascination.
I love it. Great explanation. Do you so? This is something I think about all the time. We've got legacy brands, and on our podcast, with our podcast and our newsletter, we have an incredible cross section of the biggest conglomerates in the world and the smallest up and coming D2C growth darlings, and they're all reading the same. They're all reading our newsletter because they're all on the same field of performance marketing. But when it comes to customers, are you finding that do customers, are they really interested in buying D2C? Like, are they more interested in D2C brands than they are in legacy brands just by the very nature that they are D2C?
Yeah, we honestly, this is a huge topic of conversation and, um, dissension, honestly, among the company. Like, is D2C a term that we even want to use with consumers?
Do
We
they
did a
know about it
poll.
even? Yeah.
Yeah, we did a poll on Instagram, and more than half of 2,000 followers didn't. And these were people that were in the sort of in the ecosystem, you would believe. And so I think, yeah, the term D2C in and of itself is one that I think we want to stray away from. People tend to think of like trendy internet brands or trendy Instagram brands as sort of their primary conduit to finding these types of brands. And so that's what we're sort of keying into.
Yeah, I love it, and it served us really well to come out at the beginning of the pandemic, March 2020, with a newsletter that said D2C. Because if you're in the marketing world, I feel like that became the word that was on your lips like all the time. Like, how are we going to build this out? But as far as consumers think, I don't think they really think about it that way. They probably like the more personal connection that they have with the brands and all of the things that kind of come with the D2C kind of mindset. And I feel like your
Yeah.
platform is just built to capitalize on all those more deeper personal connections that people make with these brands. And because of that, they want to be able to have a platform for reviews and things like that. You
Yeah.
mentioned reviews earlier and where reviews go wrong. Can you give me an example of where the review game goes wrong?
Yeah, I mean, without like calling out specific examples, I think, in a lot of industries, what you see is the highest bounty gets the highest placement. If it's a top five, top 10 listicle of subscription boxes, right, or whatever it may be, um, the highest payout, irrespective of whether the product's good, they've tested it, the company has any sort of moral compass. It's really just a land grab for commission and conversion. And while that can make you a lot of money, that's not what we wanted to build our business on. It wasn't solving any sort of larger problem that we saw, any larger societal issues. And so I think we want to always do it above reproach, where we're actively engaging brands, what we call brand spotting, either through outbound or they come to us through our application process on the fascination.com. And so we really evaluate them by what we call the science and the soul of the brand. Science being sort of the technical aspects of the product, its quality, its value relative to its quality, its performance characteristics, and things about it that our consumers, which are largely millennials and older Gen Z, are going to be looking for. And then we really dig deep into the soul of the brand. And the soul means the founder story. What were the tenets of the founding of the company, and what's the mission? What purpose does it solve in the world? And so we have these badges on our site that feature those brand values pretty prominently across every touch point. And so, you've got to have at least a badge to make the site, and we've got to love the products to make the site. And so that's a bit of sort of the qualitative and the quantitative about how you can partner with the Fascination. And then from there, it's sort of a commercial and logistical discussion around, affiliate versus drop ship and margin and such. But, for the most part, our criteria is really underpinned our brand partners and the ones that we've onboarded. And we've had to date, I think we've had 150 to upwards of 200 incredible D2C brands, most of which came inbound. And so there's a lot out there, and that just shows you like the need for curation is there.
Yeah, and the need for, if you're running ads, that UGC ads are what are driving the boat now, whether, in the live immediate video format or in the social feed or wherever. And so having a marketplace where reviews are built in just seems like a no-brainer. Are your reviews written and video or just written?
Yeah, it's written, it's creative, it's all of the above. So we've got GIFs, we've got videos, we have social posts that we do. So we create a range of assets when our testers across categories produce these pieces of content. And the production process is, I mean, it's involved, right? It's labor intensive. There's a lot of hands in it. And so the output of that is really thoughtfully created and done based on a high level strategy that we think is going to work long term. But yeah, we have a lot of creative that comes out of these things, and honestly the net result is brands see them a lot, and we only feature brands that we genuinely love. We're not going to try a brand, hate it, and then write a scathing review, just to attract that traffic and get sales. So that's not part of our ethos. We really genuinely feature brands that we love, and then that allows us to go to a brand and say, hey, we've got this great piece. It's performing well on an organic perspective. If you want to amplify it with paid through our handle, here's an opportunity to drive some more conversion. And so that playbook of whitelisting through paid social has scaled up significantly, and it's driven a lot of conversion for a lot of our brands.
I love that. And this is something we've talked about on the podcast for over a year now. Something that Pilot House, the agency that we spun out of, does is sometimes they'll create third-party brands where essentially, if you're selling watches, it'll be a gentleman's watch, curated type site where we actually put the content in there, but it just allows the brand to run a different look in the news feed and get a different perspective on products. You guys are doing it in a bit more of obviously more legit way because you literally are that site. So that's really cool that the whitelisting is scaling up that way. And are brands finding this approach to be as or more profitable than ads directly to the brand, or do they just view it as a part of their mix?
It's definitely a part of their mix, and I would say it varies. We've had, several partners that we just knock it out of the park for that partner. And I think where we're seeing the most success is when you have higher consideration products or products that require more research, more thoughtfulness, and a real decision to make. I think some of the fashion products or like beauty products haven't seen as much uplift with us, but still, I think they see the value in honestly just running an alternative handle in their feed and getting those additional touch points. And so almost every brand's happy to continue running just those creatives to that content because it's something new and in the journey, for the consumer.
I could see it working really well bottom of funnel, especially when they're in that consideration phase and they see the brand from another, perspective of a legit site like that. That's got to be super effective. I really like that model.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about your badges. I was just checking out your TikTok feed. I know it's a little, you haven't been putting too much there, but I see some things there, and I saw some issues that you were bringing up about products that I hadn't even thought about before. One of them was about universal sizing, about how like 70% of women in the US are plus the size 14, but how so few clothes and options are made in these sizes. And I thought that's a really interesting issue in the marketplace. I wanted to ask, what are the other big hot button issues that you find customers are gravitating towards and making purchase decisions by?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great call. I think just generally speaking, we like to feature and highlight culture defining brands. And that's one of the things that we consider culture defining. It's like going against the established norms and putting yourself out there in a way that's meaningful. So, Girlfriend Collective is absolutely the example for that. I think breaking the taboo around sexual wellness is something that, we're diving into with products like Dame. I think that there's a huge groundswell of these like manscaping products, right? Whether it's manscaping itself or the men's skincare brands or any number of brands in that ecosystem where we're just trying to tell that like trending industry story and bring it to the forefront in a way that's meaningful to our consumers to say, hey, like this isn't taboo. You can try this stuff.
Yeah. I feel like fertility products could be really big in the coming years as
Mhm.
well. As I think there's like a secret crisis, with fertility that we don't really talk about a lot. But I could see brands that address that issue being able to catch the lightning storm for
Yeah,
sure.
another one is like non-alcoholic. The non-alcoholic movement has been huge. And so, people that are drinkers their whole life are getting into these non-alcoholic drinks because they taste great and they're healthier and so yeah, we latch on to all those sorts of trends.
Amazing. Yeah, my friend actually just started a shout out to Everything Dry, my friend's non-alcoholic business that he started here in town. He's sort of changed
Nice.
his whole life around with it, and it's kind of taking off. So that is a really cool trend. Any other
Yeah.
trends that you're seeing in the space that you're interested in?
I mean, I think just generally like if I think about like the acquisition strategy of a lot of these brands at a high level, most of them are really thinking about diversification really quickly, whether that's in the omni-channel, whether that's, acquisition outside of paid social, and looking at a lot of these like new channels like us, like co-op commerce, like thing testing, where they can get brand exposure at like a marginal CAC to them, and it's bringing in new customers. And so, I think as CACs get more and more squeezed, people are going to look for more and more opportunities to get themselves out there in that sort of way.
I love it. How do you see place other like giant marketplaces like Amazon and Walmart? Do you see them as competition?
Maybe a sliver, but for the most part, no. Like, I think people go to Amazon or Walmart generally for like commodity products, and it's more of a like lowest price play. Whereas if you're going to the Fascination, you're coming to discover brands you've never heard of before. You're looking for a curated selection that is basically being presented to you by people like you, and it's a very small subset of what you would get at like a Walmart or Amazon. And so, like I said, I think, very few of our brands even go on Amazon to start. And so we sort of see ourselves as like the new antithesis to Amazon. It's not everything for everybody. It's not prime next day shipping for everything, but if there's a place to go to shop 100% of brands that you know you'll love, like go to the Fascination.
I love it. And how does your email strategy play out? Do you guys are you cross selling different products to different people based on how they engage your product?
We're starting to, yeah. So once we build out the marketplace, that's going to be like job one for us. But yeah, there's so much cross-sell opportunity within categories that are complementary brands that aren't competitive for one another. So we're going to start, using flows and automations to do that pretty heavily. We're leaning into email and SMS and actually push notifications, whether that's through, welcome or browse or cart abandonment strategies, even post-purchase. It hasn't launched yet, but we're using a tool called Rebuy for product recommendations. And so I think once we get sort of our nice assortment of brands in, there's going to be so much opportunity for, a Vincero customer to be introduced to Oliver Shorts, where he would have never heard of them because of our, the many ways that we're introducing cross sells throughout the site. And so what's nice is that Rebuy, I mean, their remit is sort of like we're trying to replicate Amazon's functionality for the D2C brand. And so we're basically saying like, okay, we've got this curated list of brands. Let's pick up some of that technology and throw it in here. So we're excited for that.
I love it. Okay, and let's talk a little bit more about the actual like where the commerce happens on the platform because I'm trying to remember actually, and I think Shogun does this. There was another platform that we had on as an advertiser that I'm blanking on right now. But what they did is they allowed you to essentially like just host a bunch of checkouts on a different site for a bunch of different great checkout processes that they liked, and they basically had this technology that allowed you to just host a brand's checkout process on your site. I was wondering, are you guys going to be building towards this idea of headless commerce and actually having brands checkouts, or is it how are you actually making the sale? Are you sending people to those sites with an affiliate code, or how does that actually work when the rubber meets the road on the e-commerce side?
Yeah, so it's not live yet what we're ultimately talking about. Right now, if you go to the Fascination, you'll see for any brand page or product page that you click through, you ultimately go to the brand via an affiliate. What we should be launching next week, hopefully fingers crossed, is the first sort of V1 of our drop ship marketplace. And that'll allow you to basically add, a Burrow sofa, a Lisa mattress, Boll and Branch sheets, all to your cart, check out on the Fascination with free shipping and free returns. And behind the scenes, our technology takes care of the rest. And so clean user experience, it all happens through the Fascination. And yeah, and so that's the goal.
That's cool. Do you do promotions and sales on the Fascination, or do you just stick generally with the price of the product?
We're thinking about creative ways to do that because, there's like this idea of map pricing where you don't want to undercut your vendors, which we understand. And so I think loyalty is going to be the big driver there, incenting, sharing, referrals, come back and use store credit, all those sorts of tactics where you're not discounting off the product, but you're asking someone to make a purchase first in order to get something. And so those sorts of tactics are going to drive loyalty. And then I think that there's a lot of other stuff that we'll be layering on with much more fun sort of gamification plays too.
Yeah, in that environment, I'm sure there's all sorts of neat things you can do there. And it's such a high quality consumer. I think that you're curating here too, who wants this curated experience, who wants this high quality experience. Seems like a really valuable play in the long term. How did nutrition brand Newsist increase their cart conversion rate? They became an eco-friendly brand with EcoCart. EcoCart is a free e-commerce plugin for D2C brands to offer more sustainable products through carbon-neutral ordering options at checkout. Visit ecocart.io to get started on your path to saving the planet while profiting. How are you growing it? What have been the biggest levers for growth that you've been able to enact for the Fascination?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we've been really, really thoughtful about growth. And so this might bore a lot of people, but we've launched about 8 months ago, right? And the strategic play was always build out the publisher platform, sort of V1, establish really strong direct partnerships with, call it 100 brands. We've got almost 200 now. Prove out that we can generate several revenue streams and start to build out the marketplace capability. And so all the growth that we've had has really been focused on organic traction, whether that's, a really heavy focus on our SEO content strategy and building organic search to drive down CPLs, or leveraging whitelisting, which drives traffic without the expenditure. And then, from our paid perspective, you have to think about it slightly differently. We're taking a percentage of a percentage. And so we've got to find pockets of efficiency where we can arbitrage a dollar and turn it into $2 or $3. And then take that at a level further even. You want to fish when the fish are swimming. So we're really tripling down during big buying events like Memorial Day, Labor Day, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So, our spend is going to be very, very calibrated where it's not an always on strategy maybe, but we do things like endorsement media, influencers, heavy focus on retention, organic search and SEO to drive our overall blended CPL down, right, while still being able to spend in pockets. And then then once we move more and more partners over to the marketplace, we'll have margins where we can start to spend more and more and more, and we'll get brand traction, and that's how it works.
I love it. And those AOVs, on those higher ticket items are probably crucial going forward to where your margins get a little bit bigger potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, we see AOV growth and basket size as, you know, tremendous levers to pull and sort of making it all work. So we're already thinking like whether it's the merchandising assortment of who we bring on the site, right? Like the categories and the collections that we build, it's all really important to getting to those numbers. So a lot of that is our team behind the scenes doing great work.
Nice. Now you mentioned organic search, and this is something that we've produced, I think, almost 1 million words of content so far in our year of publication here. And we're just constantly looking for ways to maximize that content. I don't think we've done a great job on our content site. We're rebuilding it right now. But when you say that you've really optimized for organic search, what does that actually mean from a technical standpoint? Does that mean just making sure that you're answering people's questions on the page, and you're doing all the little nuts and bolts of getting everything in the right image tags and everything? What does good organic search mean to you?
It's a number of things, honestly. I think having the underpinnings of good technical SEO on the site is like an imperative. I think especially with Google updates that are coming and looking at things like cumulative layout shift and other potential ding factors, like we wanted to get those dialed in so it's not harming our rankings. I think from a content perspective, it starts with a really good, thoughtful keyword strategy and just sort of thinking about putting yourself in the mind of the consumer and saying, okay, if I was shopping for a mattress, for instance, what are the top keywords that I would be searching for, and how do I back into a really high converting, direct response oriented, but objectively written piece that's entertaining. So it's got to hit all the SEO benchmarks. It's got to have keywords. It's got to be relevant. The content has to be original, but it also has to be entertaining and share worthy. And so the last component is really sort of backlink building, whether that's saying, hey, Lisa, we wrote this great piece about you. Can you put it on your blog, or can you share it with social, or share it in an email? And so that's sort of like last minute syndication when we do a product review, or we did a piece about 16 women-led brands that are going to rule the world in 2021, and like 10 out of 16 of them put it on their sites and shared it out. So like that network effect gets to be crazy. So we call that ego bait, and that ego bait drove a lot of our original sort of organic traction. And people like to be flattered. They like to make sort of lists, and they like to be talked about, and they like to be given content. It's great when like you can hand someone a piece of really good content and say, hey, you're featured in this, go share it. And so we're always thinking with that in the back of our minds, like how can we build up our brands in one form or another?
I feel this is an inception moment, because we're literally engaging in ego bait right now, and it's been a huge part of our growth strategy, right? And I think it underpins yours as well, where we're constantly meeting with all of the people that you should know about in the D2C space, and then they'll share the content with all of their people, who know them. And it's been the major way that we've grown ubiquitous in all the places that we want to be. And I imagine it's the same for you guys. I think that's probably like a huge part of your growth strategy, is getting the brands themselves to share this content to their audience.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we think of the quote D2C as the absolute tip of the spear. Like that's the industry insider people. They understand the world, they know the tricks, but they're also like the hardest of hardcore early adopters that are actually going to share you, and they'll be the first ones to buy when you launch. And so you got to get them jazzed up about what you're doing. And so I think we've done a pretty good job of that, and now we need to cross the chasm, so to speak, to get to those broader base of millennial consumers who haven't heard of us, who probably
don't know D2C.
Yeah, don't know D2C.
Who don't care.
Yeah, they know trendy and Instagram brands, and they know, who, what, where, or like to know it or whatever, whatever they use.
Yeah.
And so we've got to infiltrate that next layer of consumer and get in their consideration set and prove to them that we're worth checking out too.
Have you done anything with brands that do drops? I know that particular younger set. I know some brands that are just really blown up by controlling the scarcity and having hypes around drops. Have you ever worked with brands like that are engaged in that kind of customer acquisition strategy?
A little bit, yeah. We haven't paced with it as well as we'd like to. I think Sharma has a lot of brands that employ that sort of strategy because they have to. But yeah, that's one of the things, like whether it's a drop that's going to sell out or even just like when Allbirds releases like a funky cool new shoe and people are just clamoring to buy every single Allbird, like product alerts real time as soon as we hear about them is going to be a key part of our like SMS and retention strategy. And so, I want that to be really impactful for our community.
What's your gender mix with the Fascination? Is it mostly men, mostly women, or is it a good mix?
It's slightly skewed women,
Yeah.
but it's a good mix. Yeah. Um, Pretty much exactly who you'd expect in bigger cities. And then, yeah, we pretty much hit the mark for the millennial consumer and skew slightly older actually. And maybe that's David, my co-founder, bringing up the median age. But yeah, we've got a good mix of everyone from age to demo. So I think
I
there's stuff for everyone, honestly.
You brought up a really good point too, and this is something that we've got almost 50,000 subscribers now on the newsletter, and you brought up a good point about this people in our world, in this D2C world, being also sort of like often ideal consumers and potential product champions because we know, we're excited about these kinds of brands. We're actually going to be taking on our first advertiser in a upcoming issue that's going to pay, and they're a D2C product. This is the first time we've sort of bridged the B2B to B2C chasm. I was wondering, you must probably also have a lot of B2B people who follow the Fascination as well, just to keep track of product trends and what people are responding to?
Totally.
I
Yeah.
find
I
that to be the
mean,
case, yeah.
yeah, the Shopify ecosystem, the MarTech space, like a ton of B2B, sales and marketing people, they're all over it and they're early adopters of it. And I think that when they see stuff like us come out, they share it with their clients and they dig in to learn best practices about how we're using their specific platform in our stack and things like that. But I think it's great because they're great ambassadors for some of these brands, including us.
Nice. You see, you've got 200 brands sort of signed up. You probably worked with a lot of these brands that you find aspirational, that you personally like. We like to use the podcast as a manifestation platform. So, are there any brands out there that you really think should be on the Fascination that you haven't been able to go? You have any like goal brands that you want on the Fascination?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Theragun.
We've got Theragun on the platform.
Okay, you've
Yeah,
got Theragun. Okay,
yeah,
good. That's a good one.
yeah. I mean, to me, like D2C is, it's starting to become a blurred line. It's like I would love to have a quote unquote enterprise brand that's maybe not D2C to everyone, but everyone loves, like a Patagonia, for instance, or On Running is a good example of a brand that's really blown up that I don't know if they're D2C or not, but they're just a great brand. So I'm kind of the mind now, it's like brands, whether they started direct or not, like there's still cool brands out there that I'd love to have our consumers be able to consume.
It's like Patagonia. Patagonia is a really good example because they're sort of like a pre-D2C brand that has a lot of the aspects that are the best parts of D2C. They've got the great
Yeah.
founding story. They've got the super high quality. They've got the very specific niche audience. So I see that as a really cool crossover to aim for. So if anyone knows anyone who works at Patagonia, get them in touch with Matt
Or
because
Yeti.
I
Yeah,
think
Yeti would be
oh,
great.
Yeti would be sweet. Yetis are
Yeah.
amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to ask you. This is a question we sort of ask in all podcasts, and I'd be interested in your particular case. If we were to give you a $50,000 grant to scale the Fascination, put it towards your marketing budget, where would you in your business right now put $50,000 to see the biggest impact?
That's a great question. I would probably spend most of it on sponsorships and influencers and sorts of endorsement media right now. And if I had to parse it out, I'd probably say um, 20 towards like sponsored media and sponsored posts, 10 towards paid for retargeting, paid
Yep.
social, Facebook. Um, and then, yeah, maybe, oh God, it's hard to say. I think probably just a really large scale, what we're calling like a curated collection activation, where and a lot of it would be gifted product, but we basically find, call it 10 influencers, right? Across categories that mean a lot to us, like men's fashion or accessories or home and lifestyle or health and wellness. And we get each of those influencers a full suite of Fascination products from that category. We deck them out, they try all the products, they create a lot of creative. And it's almost like they're putting it out to their audience with beautiful content, but we get rights to all the content in perpetuity. So we're getting traffic, we're possibly getting conversions, we're getting emails, and now we're getting a lot of great content, right, that we can go out and use in perpetuity. So that would be my sort of logic behind the influencer activation. To your point, I think that there's a lot of um, adjacent media properties where a lot of our consumers are hanging out that we haven't played with either through partnerships or sponsorships or whatever. So to get like a dedicated post or a meaningful sponsored post talking about our story in a couple of those, I think would be impactful. And then some money to spend off the back of it to make sure that we're capturing and retargeting and driving it home for our users.
This is the most detailed answer I've ever received, and I think now I've got to figure out a way to scrounge that up to actually invest, because I think those are very, very sound answers. I was going to ask you too, like when you're trying to promote the Fascination, how much of is it that you're trying to promote this amazing new sort of like curated experience versus how much are you promoting the actual products that they get access to because of the Fascination? It sounds like a pretty even mix.
Yeah, I think it is a pretty, and I think it'll change over time. I think, right now as we test, we're trying to test, like I said, pockets of efficiency where, we've got a Brooklinen bestseller sheet set, and we think that we can get a 3x ROAS on that. And so we'll spend just on that sort of product funnel. But more broadly, I think as we scale too, we're going to be looking at these more brand building endorsement type, campaigns, whether it's sponsored media or podcasts or some combination thereof to drive home what we do as a brand. And I think our social impact story, as it comes more and more to light, is going to help with that. It'll get our feet in the doors a little bit. And so yeah, we're always going to have a healthy mix of DR and sort of more outer funnel stuff. It's stuff that's inherently less trackable, but we know it's working because there's other signals coming in.
Nice. Have you tried any podcast or newsletter advertising yet?
And not with the Fascination. I spent gobs of money at Lisa, so unless it's changed dramatically, we understand the playbook really, really well.
And you got it to work?
Yeah, yeah, it worked really, really
That's
well.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, for mattresses, I feel like that's a big sweet spot with that big AOV. What was the best podcast you ever advertised on?
It's kind of hard to say. Our longest runner was one called Comedy Bang Bang.
Oh, I
Uh,
know Comedy Bag Bag. That's great.
yeah, we ran with them for probably 3 or 4 years. And then we were on a lot of Barstool shows really early on. And so honestly, the key for us at Lisa with podcasts was like find shows that Casper hadn't already gobbled up and get on them early, lock them in. And if they're producing efficiency, just like lock in the rate. And so we would lock in these pretty sick rates early on, and the podcast would grow and grow and grow, and we had these low rates. And so we just rode that with some really high performers. We kept the hosts really happy. We let them do
Nice.
whatever they wanted, basically. And so that strategy en masse across several different categories paid dividends.
Very cool. Nice. So if people want to get in touch with you, they want to know more about Fascination, they can go to thefascination.com. If you're a brand out there who wants to get into this marketplace and see what it's all about, what do you recommend they do?
Yeah, I think the easiest thing to get in front of us is just go to thefascination.com. in the footer, there's a link that says apply as a brand. It'll ask you some very simple questions and then basically feeds right into our Slack. And so we'll get dinged, and Maggie Gibson from our team will follow up on the partnership side. So it's been great. We've had
Are you?
800 brands apply.
That's amazing. You'll get some more from this for sure. Are you just fully kitted out then? Or do you just have like a total D2C arsenal in all aspects of your home and wardrobe at this point?
I'm pretty well kitted out. We actually started sending products like to testers over in Phoenix, so I didn't get some of the good stuff, but yeah, today's pretty kitted. So
That's awesome.
it's a fun gig. I can't complain.
Are you able to say? I know you can't. Maybe you shouldn't play favorites, but are you able to say like mention a few of like the favorite integrations that you've had on the Fascination with brands?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've done tremendous work with Cuts, which is a men's.
Which is your shirt?
This is a viewer shirt, but I wear a lot of Cuts.
Okay. Yeah.
We've done really well with them. They're a really high performer. I actually did a review of Keep's hair loss, which I did for over the
Okay.
course of almost a year. Maybe it was a
Yeah.
year. And true results, first of all, I mean, 100% real results. And
I gotta get on it. It's a little late for me,
yeah,
maybe.
but it's been a huge performer. And so they amplify it with some other paid to drive even more to it. But like, those are two on the paid side, on the organic side, crushing for us. And then we've done a lot of great like sort of giveaway type integrations with brands, whether that's Aloha protein. Um, we've done some great write-ups for Huron and skincare, a lot of health and wellness brands. So products are still coming in. We've got quite a backlog, but it's really fun to like explore these products and see like all the ingenuity that goes into every one of them. It's great.
Yeah. I'm always blown away just by, how you pay for quality and how much, like when you just look at the clothes that you keep year over year, they're just, speaking specifically about clothes, like there's just such a huge difference between well-made clothes and crappy made clothes in terms of how much joy, like, and I was just looking at a t-shirt the other day and it's like, it's a $70 t-shirt. It's a lot, but like, this is a t-shirt, like I could have that t-shirt for 10 years, and if it at a super high quality, like, and it's just, and then it's really nothing when, yeah, you pay for quality is all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. All right. Well, let's leave it there, Matt. I look forward to catching up with you again in the future just to hear more about exciting trends in the D2C space, especially maybe even as we bridge into some of those more legacy brands. Yeah, thanks a lot. This has been great.
Yeah, man, this was awesome. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you're not a subscriber to our newsletter, you can do that right now at direct-to-consumer, all one word, .co. I'm Eric Dick, and this has been the D2C Podcast. We'll see you next time.